starting with the tech topics from this week. The big news that happened last week. In fact, right after we recorded our last podcast, the Twitter board officially announced that they have accepted Elon Musk's offer to buy out Twitter completely. So yeah, go in thoughts on
Yeah,
this.
44 billion dollars, right? So I know we joked about it the other time on our
Yeah,
previous podcast. Was 43 billion dollars is it's not a joke, but
yeah.
definitely looks like something that Elon was going ahead and doing anyway.
Hmm.
And he seems to be committed in his choice to do that because obviously he sold quite a substantial stake of his shares in Tesla to do that, right?
Yeah.
Or right after his acquisition was $8.5 billion in Tesla shares
Wow.
sold by Musk to make that acquisition make sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. And obviously he's had a flurry of tweets that go around
Oh yeah.
after his acquisition. Yeah, yeah, just to
Yeah. I
continue the
mean,
hype. Keep
yeah,
keep the
absolutely.
media focus for as long as possible, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if we should necessarily add to that media focus for about Elon Musk, however small our current
I like
subscriber and viewer base is right now, but that's just
exactly.
adding
I,
to that.
I was
But
gonna say I like how you consider as media.
but yeah, no, that's the idea is of course Elon's a very smart person, and basically it was a face off between Elon Musk and the Twitter board in the sense of like, hey, he made his. It was basically a game of poker, right? Like it was like who's gonna call whose bluff at what point in time, and then there were real ramifications on what would happen if the Twitter board rejected the offer, right? Like the company value, equity,
Yeah,
stocks, all of those stuff would go down, and then finally, it looks like the Twitter board were the ones who kind of blinked. I mean, it depends on how you want to think about it. You could also take the other perspective and say, no, it's like Elon did all of this as a joke, but then people called
yeah,
him out on it, and he's like, no, I need to emerge out of this as a strong person. I don't want my ego to be hurt. So you know what? I'm gonna buy Twitter, like like an
yeah.
arrogant billionaire. Sort of. Who knows what the actual situation is, but it is extremely interesting. And the last week of all of these news articles, not just Elon's purchase, it is a bunch of other movements on the stock market related to earnings calls that came out from the different tech companies caused a massive drop in sort of the stock prices of major tech companies, right? So
Absolutely. So,
yeah, like
I mean,
so
before
Tesla
we,
lost a lot of their value because of Elon's sort of I guess this
interest
is not a
outside of
pump and
Tesla.
dump scheme. This is a dump and pump scheme.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. So it lost a lot of its value based on speculation that like Elon's maybe not going to have time to invest in Tesla anymore if he's going to, kind of move his focus to something different entirely
yeah,
than what he's doing already.
yeah,
But then again, we expect this from Elon, right? So he's always got new ideas whirling around in his head, and he wants to
yeah,
action those.
yeah.
Just I'm very curious to know how that figure went from a $43 billion to 44 when it was actually, again, this is just what the media tells us and when we hear it now. So do you think it might have something to do with paying off the board? Because there was the board salaries for 10 people, which was around averaging around 300K a year. So that's
Yeah, I don't know enough
poss-
about it to kind of comment about it. You could speculate as much as you want about like what
yeah,
that situation
it's
might
true.
be.
Could be.
Again, I don't know about the terms of the sale and when it gets finalized and things like that. Finalized and when it's actually executed and things like that. Because
Yeah.
once the company is private, I guess it has to be delisted as well. Right? People shouldn't be able to buy stock anymore and things like that. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. The smart thing that the smart thing that Elon has done in terms of his PR management and perception, which he's obviously always been pretty good at, is always sort of remaining in the limelight and having this PR spin around him. I'd argue that
Yeah.
he does it better than any of the other uh, billionaires. I mean, so there's
Oh
also the
yeah, for
talk
sure.
about there's also talk about in the US we shouldn't call them billionaires anymore. We should call them oligarchs because they're increasingly buying pieces of the economy. It's not just companies; they're buying media,
Yeah,
right? So why should we call Russian oligarchs and call these guys billionaires? They should also have the term oligarchs
true,
technically. So yeah, oligarch
true.
oligarch Elon. Um, he's it's crazy, like the fact that now that he has his own personal media PR spin system, which he says that
Yeah,
he's gonna use to enforce free speech online. He personally doesn't have a good track record with free speech. There's multiple news articles about him canceling a customer's Tesla order just because of something nasty the customer said about
yeah.
him on Twitter.
Well, it's not just that. There's
Yeah.
also the thing that they, held back review units for Top Gear. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, you can argue
Top Gear
that was
did
a
a
bit
nasty
of a.
review of.
Yeah, you can argue that that's a bit of blame to go on both sides in that situation because Top Gear is more of an
Well,
entertainment program, and they may in their review they would have sensationalized like the range issues that the Roadster had and whatever. But yeah, no, that was a big spat that they had between them. But
they
hey,
did. They did.
Tesla did well in spite of not being on Top Gear for so many years, right? And then eventually making it onto the Grand
That's
Tour
true.
years later. Yeah, they didn't need them.
Well, that's the thing, right? US was never the big market for Top Gear as a show
True,
anyway. So,
true,
I mean, they
true.
did Top Gear US, but that was weird.
Yeah, that was just a flaming. That was a big tire fire, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, that's the thing. My point was Elon was being really smart in
yeah.
controlling the narrative around the Twitter takeover by posing it as a left versus right sort of free speech
Yeah,
issue. So that's really smart of him to do that here in the US ahead of like the midterms and diving headfirst into the culture wars.
yeah.
But I have a feeling that it's something that will very quickly backfire on him. Like I think he's got like a lot of fans suddenly from the right wing, I'm sure, because it's like, hey,
Yeah.
let's show the left
Too much
wing.
wrong attention.
Yeah, exactly. But if he's not able to quote unquote deliver on his promises of making it a true free
Yeah,
speech platform that either equally offends or equally pleases both the left and the right, he's going to have a tough time. And I'm pretty sure he does. Most analysts say Elon has no idea the amount of expectation and like mess that he's just took upon himself to fix personally for a person
exactly.
that who
Yeah.
has pretty much no experience in managing social media companies apart from his own Twitter account, right?
Mm.
So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. There's an amazing article from it's more of an opinion piece from the Atlantic called Elon Musk Baloney King. The world's richest man has invented a new way to disregard the truth. This is pre takeover,
Right.
but I think post when he made kind of like that, not necessarily the takeover bid, but like I think when he started getting his increased, when he started increasing his own stake in Twitter, right? He boosted it up to over 9%. Um,
Mm.
and I think one of the main things that people generally talk about Elon Musk as an agent of chaos, a savvy investor, an obsessive workaholic, a game changer, a disruptor, or whatever. But there's a tech industry analyst, Benedict Evans, who likes to call him a bullshitter who delivers. In that case, you need to call him a bullionaire. Like that. I like that terminology for Elon Musk. So, I mean,
Yeah. I
look at it
mean,
this
from
way. He's
Techno
got
King to Baloney King, right?
yeah, Techno King to Baloney King, absolutely. So, I mean, look at it this way. It's like three big disruptive companies that change the space, right? There's PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX. With the other companies and other concepts like Hyperloop and the Boring Company and like the not a flamethrower, those are just vanity. Some of them were supposed to be big disruptor ideas, but then they would endure some kind of economic or physical limitation. The flamethrower
I
company is
agree.
just a vanity project of him trying to
No, I thought
trying
that
to
was
show
just
up
a
as
part of
badass.
the Boring Company thing.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I guess it was. It's like it's their merch,
Yeah, it's the
right?
merch.
It's their merch. But yeah, like as I alluded to before, the other issue was there was a major rout on all of the other tech companies, with Amazon losing
Yeah,
money for the first time in a long time, causing
yeah,
a huge dip in value. There was trillions of dollars in stock market value that was shedded over the past week. So everybody fell, right? Netflix obviously fell from last week's their disclosure of their reduced subscribers. Nvidia fell, PayPal holdings fell. They
Meta
were all
fell.
yeah, there were movements on every other stock, every the stock price of every other company, right? Like all the FANG stocks uh, collectively lost more than 1 trillion in market value this month. So
Yeah,
it seems like you could read a little bit into it or a lot into it. It seems like one of the main things is investors or the stock market in general expects infinite growth of all of these tech companies, and
yeah,
that's obviously not going to be the case. So, and investors
yeah.
will sell when they see that there's going to be a downturn, right, for a company in some sense.
Yeah, I think
So
a lot of this also had to do with their Q1 postings, right? So
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
no,
based on
exactly. It was the
revenue.
Q1
So
postings of all of these companies.
yeah,
I mean, a lot of other things, right? Not just the pandemic earnings, but the chip shortages, the inability to move enough product for different companies. Even companies that successfully navigated most of the issues, like Apple, for example, even they saw
mm,
pretty big hit in their projected. If your projected earnings are slightly off from your actual earnings, your stock takes a dip basically.
yeah, yeah.
That's just the way it is. But yeah, that's the thing. Like this, you can't really expect infinite growth, and I think a lot of what kept a lot of these companies buoyant in terms of their growth expectation were emerging markets, and I think the fact that they don't seem to be growing as fast in emerging markets, like to try to take the slack of not them not being able to grow as fast in developed markets like the US, right? That definitely has to sting. I'm sure Netflix, maybe 4 years ago, expected a lot more growth in like the Indian market, for example, right? They kind
Mm,
of invested heavily in it, but they never saw much traction because existing content kings did better, like Hotstar. We talked about this last time.
yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know about
So with
Facebook.
Twitter,
Yeah,
with
and Twitter.
going
Yeah.
back to Twitter, right? So going back to Twitter, just on the same topic about economies and
Yeah.
profitability and all of that stuff. So some of Elon's plans for Twitter, I don't want to get too much into it and get into a rabbit hole about it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
some of his plans involve removing ads off of Twitter, right?
Mm,
And it also includes, it seems, some ways of job cuts at Twitter.
yeah.
So not sure how that's all going to go, right? So with ads, that's your primary revenue source for most social media
Oh
platforms.
yeah,
Now
for
if you
sure.
remove ads, then what are you really basing the profits on? You've
I
got Twitter
mean,
Blue, but who's going to stay on Twitter Blue when there's no ads?
the only thing I can think of is, again, this is just Elon being
So
Elon and speaking without a filter, and just a kind of like, well, now that Twitter is all his, I don't know if he actually cares if Twitter makes money or not. It's just it's just a mouthpiece for him to just talk about whatever he wants on his own platform. But if I put my tinfoil hat on again, as I do,
yeah,
it's the idea that maybe Twitter doesn't need to show ads on its platform, but it can sell
right.
data that's relevant to advertisers that can be shown on other platforms for some reason.
Well, that's probably true, and
Yeah.
that's a more you know uh, convoluted way of doing the same thing. But anyway,
Mm.
my point was, if he's not going to be on Twitter, like I know he's on Truth Social, right? So this is Donald Trump's social
Yeah. Oh
network,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
he's also on Truth. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we can only infer that because he posted a picture on Twitter commenting that Truth is the leading free app that's
Okay.
on iOS or the App Store right now, and
Yeah.
it shows it as
In the US
open,
at least. Yeah.
which means
Yeah.
he's got it.
Yeah.
It doesn't say get; it says open, which
Oh,
means he's
I
got it
see.
installed, so he's using it.
Oh, that's clever. All right.
Right.
Uh,
So I
yeah, I don't know, man.
well,
Again,
you got to check out the
it's all about
competition,
being, yeah,
right?
it's all about me being media
It's
savvy
optics.
and
It's
optics
optics.
pandering to that base of fans, right? That he's
Exactly.
kind of developed at this point.
It's
So yeah, that would
exactly,
be the
and
situation, I guess.
it's kind of lines up with sort of his talk about free speech and transparency and all of that stuff, right? Because that's Truth Social's whole kind of marketing
Allegedly, but
space,
yeah,
right?
sure, yeah,
Al- True,
yeah,
true,
yeah,
but
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what you're going with, right? Now he
yeah, yeah.
can't
That's
talk
their
down
idea.
on
Is that
something that
yeah,
supports that
yeah,
because he's talking about the same thing, right? Now he's got
yeah.
to support that agenda, so it could just be that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking about this. A lot of analysts kind of talk about the fact that he doesn't, this is going to be his foray head first into one of the largest social media companies in the world, the one that has most of the controversy. I mean, apart from Facebook, obviously, Facebook has the lion's share of controversy, but it's followed by very closely by Twitter, in terms of
Yeah.
misinformation and all of those things, and and I people either say that he's got a very myopic view of what are the concerns and the fact that he thinks that it's easily solvable. They're
Right.
not. Right, so we'll
Right.
have to see what happens anyway. Everybody can sort of just prepare the popcorn and strap in for a rough ride for the next couple of months. That's just going to be, I expect the drama not to be anywhere close to be done, and it's just going to be really interesting to see week after week what happens with this.
Yeah, especially with Twitter being the most popular, arguably the platform that the celebrities, political influencers, everybody's on Twitter and using it actively. And it's one of those platforms where it isn't like Facebook, right? So on Facebook, you have friends,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and if it's anything outside of that, you don't really get word of it, right?
That's
Unless it's
true.
an ad
That's true.
or something is promoted. But
Mm-hmm.
on Twitter, it's more of like a news social, like
Yeah.
where
The other thing that I've
yeah,
heard a lot of analysts talk about Twitter is that the reason Twitter is a big deal is because traditional media gives a lot of airtime to Twitter. Like, in the sense that your news channels, your press, your newspapers, they quote tweets all the time.
that's true.
Yeah, and
But
that's what gives
that's
Twitter
only
this outsized
because
influence.
no, that's because people are on it, right? So if they have to have something
Not
to
necessarily. So
showcase.
people are on Facebook as well, but people don't necessarily pay as much
No, but
attention to Facebook posts by celebrities on public timelines compared to tweets. Like not
right,
everybody needs to share Elon Musk on Twitter. I'm sorry, not everybody needs to. Everybody doesn't have to follow Elon Musk on Twitter, but exactly what he says on Twitter because the media amplifies it.
that's
Right?
true. And Twitter amplifies it. Like everybody's got the retweet ability, and
No, that's true.
that's one of the
I mean,
critical features.
that's obviously there. Like Facebook has share as well, but the point is,
Well,
I think
not the same.
Well, true. To an extent,
some sense.
yeah, in some sense, you
In
can
some
always
sense.
share somebody else's post, and people do that all the time on Facebook. You can argue Facebook tried to emulate
I'll tell you
this by Twitter.
I'll tell you what. It isn't the same because on Facebook there are certain privacy limitations on retweets or not retweets, reshares of somebody's post.
True, yeah,
You can't always see somebody else's post just because it's shared with you.
yeah, that's
On
true.
Twitter, it's not the case. If it's on Twitter, it's on Twitter.
At least
It's on
if you're
public
not
access.
a private Twitter user.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like I had once.
But yeah, that's true. But no, you can't discount this media's outsized influence. Like it's crazy
sure.
the amount of a tweet gets not only retweeted a bunch of times. That usually sticks to the Twitter bubble of retweets, but then it spills out into traditional media because media takes up these news articles, and then it ends up on people's news feeds, on their news apps, And then, you know, in cases like India, for example, if it's celebrity Twitter tweets, they end up on the news, like literally on television news and newspapers and things like that. So that's the thing. It's like Twitter has this outsized influence because the traditional media companies amplify, especially celebrity tweets, quite a bit. Anyway, so I guess we'll move on to the next big article. It's not necessarily a big article, but it's like a discussion that I thought was interesting to have. WhatsApp has WhatsApp payments in India now, which, as I understand,
it's
it
been there
uses.
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, as I understand, it uses the NCPI UPI interface, right? The Unified Payments Interface in
That's
India.
correct. That's correct. Yeah.
And they have followed Google's lead by giving cashback rewards for folks who use their payment system. So in India, the battle of the payment system has been, payment apps has been ongoing for a while. Everybody uses the same backend, which is great. And in general, UPI has been an amazing success story in terms of like promoting digital
Huge.
payments in
Huge.
India. It got a lot of it got a lot of boost from two sort of unrelated events. One was demonetization, second was COVID, both of which kind of really boosted the idea of like, hey, you don't need to go wait in the in ATM queues anymore. Most people, as long as more people start accepting UPI payments, and you can do you know person to person or person to merchant, P2 payments to businesses, things like that. And it's really cool how they set it up to kind of make payments a little more frictionless in India, so that you don't depend on OTPs and PIN codes. You can process payments much faster. What was really also cool was some of the innovation that happened in the fintech space in India, especially with Paytm having the Paytm speaker. That was a big deal about getting non-tech savvy merchants like kirana stores, roadside vendors, things like that to use UPI payments.
I think a lot of it also has to do with the adoption, at least the adoption strategy, at least for Google Pay
Yeah,
has been it's ubiquitous now. Like you go
yeah,
to any, like you said, kirana store,
yeah.
any tiny store, it's got a QR code right in front of it, and
Yes,
like
yes.
you said again, it's all UPI based, so it doesn't matter
Yep,
which app you're paying from.
exactly.
It's all linked, right? So
Correct.
the reason for that huge adoption, I feel, is at least on the merchant side, is because the commission structure, right? Card payments
100%. 100%.
always going to charge 2% or so from a merchant for every transaction.
Correct.
All these new payment platforms, they don't do that. At least for now, it
Yeah,
says, I'm
because they're in
looking
the
at an
growth
article right
phase.
now from Google.
Yep.
Exactly. Right now, there's no fees to use Google Pay as business owners collect, blah, 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 pay taxes and so on, right? There is no Google, commissions.
And no UPI commissions.
Uh,
NCPI doesn't charge
exactly.
anything on the back end either. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can imagine how much that's going to boost, like, the general adoption if a small chai store is going to have a UPI payment rather than accepting card. For sure, he's not going to accept card in the beginning,
Yeah.
right? Like, to begin with, he's not going to do that. But now he's got a form of digital payment that's just switched over from cash directly to all the
Yep.
way to UPI with no
Yep.
card in any of the years before, right? So
Yes,
that's
100%. Yeah. It's a big jump, right? Like, yeah.
it's huge.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
huge. And I know for a fact, now I've been living here for a while now, so
Yeah.
I know for a fact that everybody's first instinct to exchange money is, do you have Google Pay?
Yes.
And
Or do you have
and
phone
nobody
pay or
says, do you
Paytm or
have
whatever? Yeah.
no,
Not even that, yeah?
that was my point. Nope, it's just Google Pay. It's become so ubiquitous now. Even
Yeah.
if you have phone pay, it's still going to be referred to as Google Pay.
See, the problem with that is NCPI has rules that limit that a single payment provider cannot do more than 30% of all of the transactions on the
Sure.
UPI payment system. So it'll be interesting to see, like they want to prevent like a monopolistic position on
No, for
this.
sure.
Yeah, but
that's
again,
where
the way
the
the whole
difference
thing is
is coming.
architected is very, very well done in that sense, right? It's
Yeah.
it's sort of a level
It's one of
playing
the
field.
good things that have happened in terms
Yes.
of transitioning into new
Yes.
technology, new age stuff for India's general kind of
Yeah.
umbrella. Like it's a huge thing for India, and and it's quite impressive how it's been very seamless and there's not been
Hmm.
that many backlashes. Mainly because of this commission structure. It's zero
Yeah.
commission, so what's to lose, right? And goes direct to bank. Doesn't go
Yes.
sit in a wallet somewhere where you can't
Yeah.
extract it out after a while.
Exactly.
It goes direct to
Exactly.
bank,
Yep.
which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and there's a couple of reasons why it's not just about promoting this in growth phase. There's a couple of reasons why the government wants this, right? One is
Yeah,
traceability, increasing the tax base, right? Like they want to try to formalize the informal economy, increase the
yeah,
tax base, increase sort of data collection on all of these things, to kind of get people to pay their taxes and things like that. So it's we'll see how this pans out over time, because here in the
yeah,
US, initially it was the same with credit cards, maybe 30, 40 years back in the US, right? In the sense that merchants were during the growth phase were probably had very little or almost zero transaction fees, and they used cards as a way to say, get more customers in your store if you say that you take cards, because then they can earn their
yeah,
points and things like that. But
yeah,
now that that's kind of flattened out here in the US in terms of card payments, you'll see that it's now relegated to there's a division of merchants into two sides. There are merchants that can't afford to not support card payments, right?
Hmm.
Because they're large merchants, and then they it's okay, they'll take the hit on like what the transaction fees are. And then there are SMEs and small mom and pop stores who are like, no, card payments actively eat into our revenue. If you pay by
Hmm.
cash, I'll give you a discount. Or if
Yeah,
you need to have a minimum of a $10 purchase or $15 purchase before you can use a card, right? So they either enforce minimums or give you a cash discount on paying by cash. So that's also possible. It's probably maybe 10, 15, 20 years down the line for India for something like that, given how big the unbanked or like folks who still deal with cash and things like that is. The other thing that
yeah.
I'm
I
really
mean,
afraid of is that folks in India, there's this thing about technology solutionism, right? Like the idea that whatever problem you have, you just throw technology at it and you can solve it, but you don't necessarily consider the needs of like the people who are in the lowest rungs of society and things like that, right? Like
hmm,
Google UPI payments still require that you have a device that has a minimum of this spec, right? That is able to run those apps. You might be able to make SMS payments using UPI ID and things like that, but it's going to be a lot more difficult
yeah,
for folks who are
cumbersome. Yeah,
not tech savvy. But my point being, if this becomes so convenient and so widespread, um, at some point there has to be a law that says that merchants can't refuse cash. That's my
yeah, yeah.
opinion, because as a consumer, you may want to opt out of the being in this data net, and saying that I would like to make purchases, and I don't want my purchases to be tracked for whatever reason, right? Like it's not just that UPI gets the payment information, Google gets all of this payment information. You get in,
Exactly.
you get into the surveillance capitalism net,
That's
right?
That's kind of where I was going with the next point.
Yeah,
I mean, before we go into that, like
yeah,
tax, right? That brings you brought up a huge point there, right?
yeah,
Traceability
yeah.
and tax.
Yep.
So right now, 5.8. I think this is census
Hmm.
from this is pretty recent. 5.8% of India pays income tax. Can you imagine
Hmm.
that?
Yeah, no. I'm
That's
sure that
huge.
that makes
That's a
sense.
huge gap.
It's a huge gap, 100%. And it's see, it's a couple of problems, right? Like um, there are. I mean, I don't want to get too much into it. You'd have to talk to an economist about this, right? Like, so the idea
For sure.
is that, yeah, but at the same time, India has some of the highest indirect tax structures in the world, right? Like you tax on consumer
That's
spending,
true.
so that's how they try to make up that gap, right? Compared to over here
Yeah.
in the US, you mostly have sin taxes. You don't have as much of a sales tax on most other things, especially compared to India now, like with the GST rates on especially luxury
Hmm.
goods and things like that going crazy. But yeah, no, that's the idea. Is like you want to expand the tax base, and the government wants to know exactly where money is flowing and how. and you will lose that sort of quote unquote anonymity of moving money around.
Yeah.
Like you can argue that
Exactly.
it's both a good thing and a bad thing. But ultimately, if I put my cynic hat on, the big money movers, the folks that need to funnel money into political parties, the kickbacks that need to go
They're
to,
not using Google Pay.
they're not using Google Pay, and they'll always find a way, right?
Yeah,
Money
they'll
that
find a
needs
way.
money that needs to be um, the present Indian government already made electoral bonds completely anonymous. Like you can pay any amount of money to the coffers to a political party, and you do not need to disclose anything.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So they made sure that their money sources are fine, but they'll close the door on regular citizens. It's just how this is the nature of how power works. I'm not talking about any specific party here. Anybody who's in power will do this, right? They want to make sure that their
Yeah.
things work fine, and everything's smooth for them. Anyway, try not to get too political, but anyway, you can't
True.
when you talk about the intersection of policy, government, and like technology, this comes into
For
play.
sure, you're going to talk about
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly. The other thing that I want to talk about, payment anonymity. The other thing that really pisses me off anytime I go back to India is the number of merchants that ask you for your consumer details to your personally identifying information when you try to make a purchase.
Yeah.
And there was news.
true.
There was news this week, I believe. Yeah, this week.
Decathlon.
Yeah, but Decathlon is infamous for this, right? Like you show up at Decathlon, and for users who don't know, I mean listeners who don't know, Decathlon is a French sporting goods company. It's a very large retailer that has
a lot
a
of Chinese
huge
goods.
yeah, but they have a huge footprint across India, and then they're like the Walmart of sports, right? They support almost every kind of
Yeah.
sporting activity. Their prices are good. All of that's great, but you cannot exit out of a Decathlon store after purchasing some goods without giving away a phone number. And the Trinamool Congress MP Mahua Moitra actually called this out, and she said, I should be able to go to a company, buy something in cash, and walk out without any details. And now companies will give you all kinds of excuses. They'll say, "Oh, but if you have a refund or an exchange or like a warranty claim, issue me a receipt."
We have this save feeds.
Yeah, just issue a receipt. That's it.
Yeah,
Like
that's what's been happening for ages, right?
yeah,
I mean, the sell is that your life will be convenient even if you lose the receipt. Just give your number. We have a record of your
the
purchases.
life is convenient for the manufacturer. It's not convenient for the because now you're going to get X number of these messages and spam messages. There's no decent data protection laws in India, so there's nothing really stopping these companies from forwarding your information or details to other harvesting companies.
It's true.
And people seem to be a lot more willing to just give away their PII, your personally identifying information in India. Right? It's just like whatever. Like at minimum, you should have some kind of carrot for it. Like if you said that you needed my information because you're running a lucky draw and there's a really nice big first prize, then I'm more willing to give my information there. But if you flat out tell me that I cannot purchase an item from your store without giving away my information, at least for me, that's a hard sell. And I think more people need to stand up to this stuff and say either.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I generally don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to give a number. And usually what ends up happening at that point is the cashier puts in their own number or just a bunch of nines or zeros or whatever.
Which is fine. I don't mind this kind of data being poisoned. Right? In fact, that's actually better than not having data in some sense. Like poison the data. For this kind of stuff. Absolutely. If you've got a ridiculous policy, then by all means, do malicious compliance and then poison it. That's my take on this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to hopefully things that don't grind my gears as
Apple
much.
Stuff and some
yeah.
Some Apple stuff and some Google stuff after.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
So there's some rumored leaks. Not rumored leaks. The leaks are real, but there are some rumors floating around that the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max will be getting taller displays, and then they have a replacement for their notch. There are some renders that have emerged as a result of some of the leaks. Yeah, and the idea is the iPhone 14 will now have taller displays. There may be some more variants.
Slimmer
There's
bezels. Yeah.
some indication that they may nix the mini, which will annoy the small phone crowd, which is a very small crowd, which is why they're nixing it. Right? There are a lot of people who looked at the 13 mini and said, you know what, I like this idea. I want this phone. I don't like large phones.
Same with the 12, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, they're throwing that out. It looks like, and what it looks like more here, just in that image that you're sharing on video, is
Yeah.
once again, Apple's doing that thing where you pay more to get a new feature. The notchless ones, or the punch hole ones, are the Pro ones, the Pro and the Pro Max. And the
Exactly.
regular phone and the regular Max
Yeah.
still get the notch.
Yep.
Why do that?
No, that's the price you pay. You want 100 more pixels, you need to pay $100 more. It's $1 per pixel. That's how the Apple ecosystem works.
Man, that's just a big in your face kind of approach to do
And
things. Like,
NKBHD talked about this in a very recent video. It's like their non-pro and
yeah.
pro differentiators were very clear before, and it usually, like for someone like me who kind of spends a lot of their time on their phone, I tend to skew towards the pro sort of because it's not, for me, it's not just a phone, it's like a device I use all the time, and I care about those specs. I care about LTPO, I care about high refresh rate, things like that. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, like with the next generation of phones. So Apple phone releases are typically September. I'm pretty sure
That's true.
we don't expect to see this in WWDC coming up, I think, next month.
won't.
WWDC, there's some rumors about new Mac products that might come out, but we'll see when that happens. I don't want to get into too much of the game of speculation, especially with Apple.
Yeah, I mean, we might see the M2 or the M1 Ultra spilling over into more products, but
Yeah, there could be possibly finally a Mac Pro
be a new
replacement for the Pro.
iOS.
Yeah.
could be a new
And
iOS update or something.
yeah, and we'll see. And continuing with the leaks, something that's near and dear to both Govind and I, they're
Smartwatches.
smartwatches, and the fact that there is a leaked Pixel Watch spec with a lot of pictures and Google's acquisition of Fitbit possibly finally yielding something in the hardware space, and something that honestly Google should have done 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's a bit little late to
Yeah.
if you're gonna stay, I don't know, honestly, like a lot of people have smartwatches already and aren't ready to upgrade.
Yeah.
Don't know who's going to be the target market for a Pixel Watch. Once again, when we talk about Pixel or anything Google producty, we talk about support, we talk about like after sales.
Yep.
How that's not going to work out too well for people out in India, especially in anything less than a T1 city. I'm not sure how it's going to work out in the rest of the world as well. Obviously, what we're looking at here is a circular display for the people who are listening on the audio podcast.
Yeah.
We're looking at a circular display with rounded edges spilling over all of the sides.
Almost looks like a black gemstone, right? Yeah.
It does. It does. It's got no discernible bezel, but once obviously it's going to have a bezel, but when the display is off, you can't see it. And it goes all the way around, wraps around a crown on the right, and and I think it's going to have a silicone strap similar to the Apple Watch base variants.
Yes, like what I have.
That's what we should expect. Yeah. Yeah, so smartwatch space, it started out like in 20, I want to say 13.
Maybe, I think so.
I want to say Wear OS. That's when it started. And I remember I bought at the time I was in Doha, and then I had my Aramex shop and ship account where I used it to ship from Amazon US a Motorola Moto 360. Now, the Moto 360, it was specifically interesting at that time
Yep.
because it had a circular display. But
Mm.
even then, it had a notch. It was the OG notch watch. It had a notch on the bottom edge where they fit all the light sensors and everything. So it wasn't a perfect
Yeah.
360.
Yeah.
It had a small notch on the bottom.
Mm.
But that was a really cool looking watch at that time. There was nothing else that competed in that same space. There was a few upcoming watches, and I think the first Galaxy watches. Let me get my timeline right.
Yeah.
When is that? 2014? Yeah, that was 2014. My bad. So that was 2014, early 2014, not 2013. And when did the first Galaxy watch come out? But again, we can't talk about Galaxy Watch because that was Tizen. It wasn't Wear OS.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like if Samsung had jumped onto the Wear OS bandwagon early on, I think that ecosystem would have been a lot less fragmented
Stronger.
and a lot stronger.
Yeah.
Compared to what it is today. For me, my first foray into smartwatches was the Asus ZenWatch 3. Asus immediately stopped selling smartwatches right after that model. So that was a bad. So I know last week I talked about never buy the first gen product. Sometimes you'd be unlucky because you buy the last gen product. I really liked Wear OS at that instance because at that instant of time it looked like Google was really trying to replicate sort of the Wear OS iOS ecosystem and the interoperability between them. But Google being Google, like we've said before in this podcast, just immediately abandoned Wear OS, right? After a couple of generations. And if you were on Android, it looked like the Galaxy Watch.
It wasn't called Wear OS at first. It was called Android.
Sorry, Wear OS is
the newer name for it.
Okay.
I think you were talking about the Watch OS.
Watch OS, yeah, that's iOS though, right? That's on the Apple.
That is Watch OS.
Yeah, that is Watch OS. Anyway, confusing nomenclature and interchangeable names aside, and for the longest time, it happened to be that if you had an Android, the best smartwatch you could get was the Galaxy, I guess.
That's true. That's true.
And it didn't matter if you had
most people.
Yeah, it didn't matter if you had if it didn't matter if you had OnePlus or any other Android smartphone, right? Like so Galaxy smartwatches would just work.
It didn't matter, but you did benefit from downloading. If you didn't have a Samsung Galaxy phone, you would have benefited from get not just that app, a bunch of apps, which we used to call Samsung bloat, with Samsung Health and Samsung everything else that goes around it. So download all the apps, and then you have the equivalent version of the watch as well. So, however, Galaxy or Samsung has moved away from Tizen OS into Wear OS now from their Galaxy Watch 4.
God, it's about time.
Okay. So we had some very, very popular players in the space. LG was one of the OG Android Wear makers. Motorola, obviously. Huawei had some really good stuff. Again, these were all focused on like having circular displays, and that was very, I don't know if it was technically challenging, but it wasn't done quite often, right? We had all these square displays or rectangular displays, but then the circular ones really hit home with a lot of people, including myself. That's why I got the Moto 360 rather than something else.
And the main sort of like mass market Android Wear brand was Fossil, right? Fossil had really nice designs, and their support's okay. Fossil did a very cool thing, which is hybrid smartwatches. I had a Fossil hybrid after that, and the main gain, and you have one as well. And the main one of the main features with the hybrid smartwatch is the fact that you didn't have to charge them every day. And
it's true.
And it was minimally invasive. So it's a philosophical shift from a general smartwatch. And it was more of like, I'll buzz when you have a notification or a call. But that's about it. Maybe I can give you some auxiliary information. Like I'll move the hands, right? Like almost like YMCA or whatever. Move them in different ways to kind of emote.
Indicate what type of...
exactly. Yeah. Whoops. And that was my watch going off. Anyway, so But then I moved over to the Apple ecosystem last year by buying a new iPad, a Mac, and then I relented and finally got an Apple Watch. And I got an Apple Watch actually for the most stupid reason. Initially, I got it to like maybe try to get more into like Fitness Plus and stuff, which is really good. I really enjoyed that. But the main stupid reason that I got an Apple Watch was to be able to unlock my iPhone while wearing a mask.
Do you know what? That's not stupid. Like Face ID and any facial recognition based
Yeah.
unlock really didn't really take off ever since COVID, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I think, man, that's crazy.
And that was one of
I'd
that
still
was
prefer
one of the
fingerprint
beautiful things
scanners,
about
honestly.
Android, right? Like the fingerprint scanners, exactly. And I started missing my fingerprint scanner
Well,
so much after that.
not to discount the actual Touch ID which started this, right? So Touch ID on iPhone was really quick as well. But yeah, they couldn't figure out how to put that on the back, so they had to go with Face ID. Why?
Yeah, it's one of
I
those, I would
think
say.
Face ID was definitely one of those things that like Apple said that, hey, we can do this. We got the tech for it. And it's going to sound like fancy Minority Report, like iris scanning type of thing, which you can convince people to buy just based on that.
Yeah.
But I never understood it because like we spoke about this a little while ago
Yeah.
in one of our earlier podcasts is
Yeah.
OnePlus, which did the Face ID thing, but not the same way, obviously,
Yeah.
less secure. But
Yeah.
it was, if not
fine.
faster than like the regular Face ID that Apple does.
It
So
really annoys me. So I use my phone for payments, NFC contactless payments here in the US with Apple Pay,
you,
and
you
that
take your
Face
mask
ID
off.
authentication is annoying when making payments.
Yeah.
Like I just wish like I could do it with my old phone.
And
Just
some
keep
places,
a finger on the fingerprint reader while you tap in. Oh,
yeah.
so much faster.
And some places on iOS, I noticed this a few days ago actually. I was just use my wife's phone, and I was trying to download an app, and it's got Face ID on it, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So the app, the confirmation for that, you need to have Face ID. There's no override Face ID, even if I know the PIN during an app install.
Oh, interesting. So you can't install
I
an
don't know. I
app.
might
Just
be.
use. You can't install an app using just a PIN passcode instead of Face ID. There should be a way around it. Hopefully, if
There
there
should be
isn't,
a way around.
yeah, there should
Yeah,
be a way around
but
it. If not, then that's a
I couldn't
big.
figure it out. I was
That's a
annoyed by
big,
it.
big
It was just
thing.
quicker to find her.
But having lived with the Apple Watch for the last, I don't know, 2 months now, it's really impressive. Like the way that it's able to kind of manage this integration into your lifestyle without being too invasive, and then setting it up exactly the way you want it, it's fantastic. And I love to swim, and Apple Watch's swim features are unmatched. Like, so this is the last time I hit the pool and I said I wanted to swim 700 yards or so. The Apple Watch was able to figure out on each lap what kind of stroke I did. And was able
Your average heart rate was 138.
while swimming, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a highly intense activity for me. Come on. but yeah, no, the fact that it can track,
Regular old Michael Phelps.
yeah. No, its ability to actually track exactly what kind of swim stroke you did, how many laps you did, how much
Yeah.
time you took in,
Crazy.
how much rest you took in between, is unbelievable. And I'm a lot more willing to give this data to Apple than to any other company, to be honest. Like I'm sure Google will look at this data and say, you know what, it looks like you would benefit from some flippers. So here are a couple of ads for like flippers that you could wear when you swim, right?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
man.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, once
Alright.
you set up your smartwatch the way you want it, it can be like pretty non-invasive
Yep.
unless you want to be notified about something. That's a pretty good thing about it. And whenever you consider buying a smartwatch, what you're going to think is you're going to play around with it a lot. You're going to use all the watch faces all the time. You're going to switch it up,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. You never really end up doing that.
And,
Once you
and
find
then,
your comfort zone, you
yeah,
don't
exactly.
change it
You'll
ever.
you'll find your plateau, your comfort zone, and then you'll kind of stick to that. Yeah. And that's what I really love about. And for Apple
What's
Watch,
its battery life like?
battery life is like a day and a half, so it's not bad.
Yeah,
It's not
I mean,
great.
they
Yeah.
really, but is that with active heart
Active
rate
heart.
tracking and everything?
Active heart rate tracking,
All on,
all on.
all on.
all on, all the time. And
Yeah, it's not bad.
I've also got the always on screen.
Okay. Oh, with that on,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
The backlight does go off. So always on screen was like a thing that was Samsung exclusive for the longest time.
Because
And
the
like
OLEDs.
yeah, because of OLEDs, exactly. And then when Apple finally brought it in, it was like a big huzzah. But then all the Samsung folks are like, oh, what? We've had this for like 3 generations now. Like, what's
Yeah,
the
I
big
mean,
deal?
like everything else,
Yeah.
Same thing with
Yep.
the hole punch. We started this conversation with Apple's
Mm,
iPhone 14 and having hole punches instead of
yeah.
the notch.
Yeah, it's been around
And
for 3 years
3 years on
Android.
Android phones.
All right.
Yeah.
What else are we talking
What else we
about
got?
in tech? Well, let's see. Snap's planning on making a drone flying cam for
Yeah, this is
Snapchat.
something I wanted to talk about. Snapchat or Snap.
Okay.
They've kind of dropped off the whole social kind of space. Like, I don't really hear about them too much anymore, right?
It's
Besides the
true.
1 or 2 ads. I
Yeah.
mean, they did the Snap glasses as a publicity stunt. They didn't really
Uh-huh.
sell too many of those. And now they've got a Snap drone,
Yep.
which again, I'm not entirely sure why. Like, it's a drone that's about it's the size of, if you're old enough, like a floppy disk.
Okay.
And it's got cameras on the front and the bottom. I don't know if you want to pull up a picture of this.
It's called a
So,
Snap Pixie, is it?
not entirely sure what's called. It's called a Snap drone flying cam
Okay.
thingy.
I'm pulling up a Verge article right now.
Yeah, that's it. That's it right
Okay,
there.
so it is
That's
the
the one.
Snap Pixie.
Pixie.
And
There you go. Now, if this is, if it's got tech that is supposed to follow you around, or object detection and tracking,
I see.
then
Okay.
maybe. Then yes, I see the point in that for action sports, maybe, or
Or no, even vloggers, right? Like if they don't
yeah,
want to
exactly.
carry
I
around
was
a
about to
selfie
say,
stick all the time.
I was about to say a very lazy vlogger. It's like, here, you do the work. I'm just gonna stand around.
This is very
So that's
sci-fi futuristic in some sense.
in some sense. I mean,
Yeah.
when we were kids, we probably go crazy over this stuff. But
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, other companies have done this, but now why is Snap doing it is really questioned, right?
I think the
Are
idea is they want
getting
a
into a
smaller form
different,
factor, right?
space?
Yeah.
Yeah, smaller form factor aside, like why is Snap getting into it is probably they want to look at how they can get into the actual hardware space. Like they've played in the social media space, and they're not doing too much over there anymore, really. I mean, with the TikTok and Reels and everything else, Snapchat's gonna find it hard to kind of sustain its kind of space. Initially, the whole thing with Snapchat was disappearing messages. Now everything has disappearing messages. Like even
Yeah.
WhatsApp has disappeared. So they're not
Snapchat completely got
and
steamrolled by
filters.
TikTok, at least outside
Yeah,
India. Yeah.
and
And
then
inside
Reels
India, they
after,
got
right? For
steamrolled by
India, it was Reels.
Instagram. Yeah.
Exactly. So
So I don't know.
interesting why they're trying to get into hardware.
I think what they may be looking at, like there's a limit to how many fancy software features they could use to grab users and bring them in. I think the play here is to try to get those vloggers and influencers to use this with a combination of Snap's software to do something that you cannot do in any other app, and then get it
Yeah, I get that.
trending for some reasonable amount of time so that Snap comes back into relevance. Like I think that's my
Yeah,
idea,
but
my take.
yeah, sure, but a lot of vloggers who are already popular and have a lot of followers, they're gonna get that for free. Okay,
Yeah.
they're gonna get that
Yeah.
$229 Pixie for free, and they're probably going to promote some content just to make that worthwhile for Snap to do. But the point is, who as a regular consumer is buying that
Yeah.
to use it only with Snap? If it's
No.
like
I will probably they'll
yeah.
use it with Instagram as well. Yeah. If it they can if it works.
If it's usable with everything, then maybe. But if it's like just for Snap, then maybe not.
All the
I would
Indian
rather
TikTokers will if they had to choose between buying a DSLR or that, I think to some extent they'll be like, you know what, this is amazing. I'll be able to do amazing aerial shots of my
you get a
next TikTok
DSLR?
video. For 229, very difficult.
Yes,
It'll have to be the EOS
Gold
1000D or the what is it, the Rebel?
cordless.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Anyway,
What else we
moving on
got?
to
So,
automotive, right?
Yeah. Let's move
Yes.
to automotive. And a quick good transition for that is the last story we actually had on tech was Android Auto, right? So Android Auto, it's had incremental updates, and this is a quick one. Basically, there's a lot of smaller devices that are coming in now. Now, if I don't know how much of this you've been following, a lot of the newer cars have Android Auto wireless and Apple CarPlay wireless,
Correct.
so you don't actually have to plug in. And I think we spoke about this a little while ago, but why aren't people doing this where they have just a display that just has Android Auto
Yeah. Yep.
and you
Yep.
can
Yep.
plug in? So there's a lot of dongles that you can get now, but again, not very mass availability focused. So what's called this? Let me try to find this
Is
article
this
for you.
car dongle?
Yes, car
Okay.
dongles. Nine.
All right. Let me pull up their website.
No, it's not just that one. Let me. There's also AA wireless
Okay.
and wait, why did I find
Oh, I
this?
need to watch out this. I just saw a hit from Reddit that says that car dongle PC is a scam. Be careful.
Oh no, that's not the one. I was
Okay.
looking at a
Okay.
specific
Yeah.
article. Here, I got the article. Here, I'm
Okay.
gonna post it for you so you can pull it up.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. But yeah, continue to
Yeah,
talk about
here you
it.
go.
Yeah.
So my point was, these conversion kits really make a lot of sense, right? So I know myself personally, I use Android Auto a lot, right? Every time I get in the car, I'm plugging it in.
Yeah.
But if I have the option of not plugging it in, I choose that every day,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
Because I don't need to charge my phone on the go. I'm not doing long haul trips all the time that I
Yeah.
need to charge my phone in the car every single time.
Mm.
These wireless dongles from Motorola, AA Wireless, and something else. I can't read that. But
I see. Yeah.
so these brands, they need to make these mass market, because I know I've searched for it here. I can't get one.
Mm.
So yeah.
How do these interface with?
So these plug into the head unit of the car, and
Okay.
then they stay plugged in. You don't need to remove them ever. And
Okay.
it basically connects an ad hoc connection
Oh,
between
I
that
see.
and the
So
phone.
this requires that your head unit already have Android Auto.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
It converts your USB connection to a wireless USB connection, in effect,
Correct.
allowing your display to
Correct.
show up. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let me see if the prices drop high enough, I'll probably take two of these to India, because if there's
Yeah,
the
bring me
Innova
one.
has one of these, and then the other vehicle also has one of these. So yeah.
Bring me one too. We get three.
Sure. All right. Now
Yeah.
transitioning over to other automotive news
Automotive.
articles. So we talked about we lamented the death of the performance hatchback sort of market
Couple of
in
episodes ago.
India a
Yeah.
couple of times on this episode, because my heart is with like some of those hot hatches. We revisited in the context of Polo being discontinued in India.
That's true.
And the rumor mill is going a little crazy in India right now, because the Swift Sport, a single Swift Sport, was actually spotted at Mumbai's airport, and was spotted having an AR/AI testing board on it, which may indicate that there may be some plans in some form to have some units of this vehicle in India. Again, very conservatively. Maybe it's Maruti testing it out and then sending it back and then never releasing it into
Well,
market.
I think, yeah, that might be a thing. But it
Yeah.
really depends on price. You know how much this should cost? If this costs like 12 to 13 lakhs
Yeah.
on road, then people can buy it. You can
It,
expect people to buy it.
it's a direct reply
If
to
it's
the
any
N
more,
line, right?
well, yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, obviously, this has got a little more torque, I think. But, and also, this is powered by 1.4 liter turbo petrol that's only producing 127 horsepower. That's very limited in its output. I don't know why that is, but I'm sure it's tunable at some point.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But
Tuner
if this comes in,
opportunities.
but if this
Assuming,
thing comes in at 12,
yeah.
13 lakhs, I can see people buying it.
And assuming that you don't get into trouble with the MVD for tuning at the end, like that's
Yeah,
always an issue in India.
that you'll get into trouble for sure,
As
because you
long as
can't modify
as long as
cars
you
at
don't put a
all.
big exhaust on it, you should be fine.
True. Then they
The
don't
noise
find out,
levels
right?
are
Because
what
there's
ticks
no
them off, I guess. I mean, for those who,
exactly.
for listeners who don't have the context, technically, or it's not technically, legally in India, any car modification is supposed to be illegal.
That's true,
Yeah.
including uh, including tinting your windows and everything else.
Yep.
So everything is off
It's
limits.
it's off limits unless you have one of those red plates that indicates that you're a politician, in which case window tints and everything's all fine. Because the cops are not going
Yeah,
to
because
enforce.
it's
Yeah.
the necessity at that point.
Yes, necessity.
Why
But
do you need this
anyway,
necessity?
yeah, that's the thing. So this will be interesting. I think at minimum, Maruti should have like 100 CBU units coming to India just for like brand loyalty, loyalists, and just like, I'm telling you, they'll get swooped up.
And 100 is not enough. Even at CBU levels, 100 is not nowhere near enough. This is like the whole Polo GTI thing, right? The
I
Polo
see.
GTI was sold here, and I think
Okay.
was priced at 23 lakhs or something.
Ooh, ouch. Yeah.
But you get a tiny hot hatch which is producing 197 horsepower here. That's a
Yeah,
lot for India in a
yeah, that
tiny
is,
car.
yeah. That's some
And
real
the
flexing that
reason
you can
why they
do.
didn't sell more is because they brought the 3-door version. Why? Like, just bring the 5-door. People want space also, besides just sportiness.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Like, it's this niche enthusiast item, and the 3-door is visually more appealing. You could argue, right? Like, it's another flex, right?
Yeah.
It's very hard, like, to have more SKU variants. I don't know if people use the word SKU for cars as well. We use it a lot in tech for the stock
Yeah.
keeping unit, right? Or whatever, the variant. Like, to have more
You can
variants
say
on an
SKU.
enthusiast vehicle that isn't dealer modifiable, right? It's hard. Yeah. I don't know. I personally wouldn't mind. Like, I've owned coupes before. So I personally don't care. Don't mind, especially if it's your second vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy exactly, if it's your second vehicle or third vehicle or something, they're fine, no problem. But a lot of people want that opportunity. If they want to spend 23 lakhs on a car,
They
and
should
you
be
tell
able
me
to
that
carry more
right
people
away,
in it. Yeah, I
Exactly.
agree. And
you're gonna have to. It's like the sale perspective that you
Yeah.
spoke about the other day about
Yeah.
convincing your parents to get a gaming PC is probably easier than console. Same story. Convincing
Yeah.
your family that you need a hot hatch is probably easier when they fit into it.
Yeah. Now that you mention this more and more, I'm veering towards your point of view a lot more now. So the other thing is that where are hot hatches popular? They're not necessarily popular in rural markets. They're popular in the
Urban.
cities, the tier 1 cities. You're going to have parking problems in tier 1 cities. So if you're going to convince somebody to buy the Polo hot hatch, it's going to be your only car that you can park in your society or whatever. You need 4 doors. Like, you need the full 5 doors, right? Yeah. Including the hatchback. Exactly. Yeah, I agree now. So yes, that's definitely
No, but back to the Swift Sport. So
Yeah.
always welcome to see it here. It's going to be great. And I know in this I want to say third generation of Swift that's going on right now. It
Yeah.
looks really cool. And
Yeah.
they should really bring it if they can. But the pricing is very crucial. At
Yeah.
127 horsepower, if it's not priced well, people are going to just go by the i20 and
The i20N line, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You get about the same horsepower, maybe less torque, but
Yeah.
again, that's a 3-cylinder. This is a 1.4 turbo, which I'm assuming to be a 4-cylinder turbo.
There were for folks who are on the video podcast, there were a couple of pictures of one of their Swift Sport Hybrid World Champion Edition. That was just 7 units for Italy, apparently. So if they have
Ferrari
some
attitude,
if they have some really cool dealer options on like stripes and things like that, that they can somehow kind of fit into play, or like different alloys and things like that that are dealer installed, I can see this doing very well.
yes, For the Swift Sport, maybe.
Yeah.
The point on that, same brand, Maruti Suzuki had the whole customize your own car decals from the OEM kind of look. You could configure your car like your Maruti Ignis and your what is it called, the Brezza. You
Yeah.
could opt in to graphics on the roof of your car and dual tone paint jobs and everything. You could opt into that. Not a lot of, I don't see too many of those on the road.
Okay.
I don't think many people opted into that
Yeah,
whole
because I think they found that it
90s
was
thing
cheaper
of,
for you to like ride out of like take your vehicle from the showroom, drive it straight to a modification place, and then do whatever you want there,
no,
rather
but
than pay
even then,
dealer
I don't see too many
markups.
cars with decals anymore, right? If you do
Ah,
it
yeah,
outside
yeah,
the showroom, if you
yeah.
do it outside the showroom, technically, well, legally, it's non-compliant with the whole modifying your car thing.
Yeah, that's true. So you can't get the +1
So,
horsepower for the G Ready sticker that you add to your, like each G Ready and each Moto sticker that you add to.
I remember the time that we were driving and then we were just casually street racing, and then you were
Yeah.
told, throw out the tissue box.
Yeah, yeah. Throw it, for weight reduction. Yes, exactly.
Introduction. Add lightness. Lotus
Yeah.
equation.
Hmm.
Right.
Um.
Mercedes.
Yeah.
Mercedes has got
Mercedes.
a new T class. A
Oh
T
God.
class, which is, it looks horrendous first. And the reason for that is it's because it's just a copy of a Renault Kangoo. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's a Renault Kangoo.
Kangoo. The fact that it copied its design from from a car that's called Kangoo itself is hilarious. Like
But what
it's
is the point of this car right here? Like,
it's
it's a B
reveals
class,
like,
which is a little
yeah,
taller.
it's reveals like this that really make me miss regular Top Gear. Because you know that
Good
Jeremy and
news.
May and Hammond would have just ripped this car apart to shreds during when they do their news, right? The news segment. Oh God, is the Kangoo supposed to be like the Twingo or whatever? Renault has like the
No.
worst
That's a different
names
car.
for cars.
That's a different car. The Twingo is a
Okay,
different car.
okay.
The Twingo, they even had a hot Twingo.
Oh, the name. Oh God. Moving on, as they say from.
Now I want to look at the hot Twingo.
Oh
Yeah, it's
God.
there.
That's
Twingo
a
RS
dangerous
133
search
Cup.
term. Be careful. All right.
Well,
All right.
good thing I had safe search on. So
Yeah.
hot
Yeah.
Twingo 133 RS. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
thing.
The hot Twingo. All right. Moving on to other topics in India. What do you want to talk about next in the automotive segment?
So we
We've
got
got a bunch.
BMW coming out with more EVs. So they had the
Yes.
mini electric, they had the iX that was planned. It's coming out with, they've just come out with the i4, which I've heard great reviews about actually. It's like
Yeah.
all the benefits of a 3 Series
Okay.
with the electric component added to it. You get the range, you get 3 Series driving dynamics, and even better than 3 Series probably because of lower
Nice.
center of gravity with the battery packs, right? So
Nice.
so yeah, that's going to be a good thing. But I don't know honestly how many people are buying this segment of car in India right now. Because if you have that kind of coin, you're going something bigger or
So
SUV, or at least a
yeah,
5
exactly,
Series.
or the compact SUV, right? Like the G classes,
Yeah,
the
the GLC or
the X variants, like the X
X3.
X3.
X1 is, I think, comes at a lower price point than
Yeah,
this. So X1
yeah,
excluded. So probably an X3 or a GLC.
yeah. And if you
I don't
spend
know.
this amount of money, you generally don't get a compact sedan, right? People want to try to show off with bigger
Exactly. You go
sedans.
at least a 5 Series.
Yeah. Because
Like
at least
so.
among us, when we see a C class on the road in back in India, like, oh, couldn't afford an E, right?
Peasants.
That's we are driving around in like a Maruti 800 or whatever. But yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I gotta pull attention to this though. The current gen BMW kidney grille, yay or nay? There you go. I can see you wincing. Same here, man.
No,
Like
no.
it's
It's You know what? The image that you're showing now, it's fair. You know why?
Yeah.
Because it has that split at least going down the middle of the kidney grills, which has the license plate right now
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
image that you're sharing.
yeah.
But I think the M4 it was where they just botched
Oh
it.
my God. And
Ah,
here in the US, I'll try to pull that image up, but here in the US, there are some states that are not dual plate requirements. Like
yeah,
Pennsylvania, for example,
Florida.
doesn't require that you need license plate in the front and back. So if you had an M4 in PA, like I have a feeling that most people would basically opt in to have the, oh yes, I have the picture right now. So most people would opt in to actually, you know what, I'm going to install a front license plate because this grill is ugly as hell. I have a
Oh
feeling that
man.
people would opt into it. Yeah.
Do you want to just open up this link that I'm posting to you?
Okay.
Where's this? Yeah, right below that.
Okay.
So Chip Foose. Chip
Uh-huh.
Foose is a famous auto designer in the US.
Okay. Oh yes,
So
chip
he's
foods.
done
Yeah.
this. Yeah, he's done
Yeah.
this episode where he's reworking the front end of the 2021 M3 and then the M4 after that. So with the grills, how to make it better. So
And this is the video we're
yeah,
showing is
you can
from
skip it.
Haggerty, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
So
see.
if you want to skip
Yeah. Yeah.
scrub through this, this is the what he just showed was the
Yeah.
huge grill that it currently has, and then you want to skip to the end where he does a
Yeah.
mod, and he makes it look really good
Yeah.
afterward.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
There you go.
He did a split on the kidney grill. Okay, I
Yeah,
see.
and that was my point, right? So the
Yeah, yeah,
license
yeah.
plate kind of acts as that split,
Ah, I see. I see.
where if you have a visual breakup, then
Yeah.
it's kind
Yep.
of okay. It's
Yeah.
acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, one could argue that
I
this is not
like
the
the
first.
old BMW designs. I like the old 8 Series design, the
Yeah.
old the CSL design. It was so good. Yeah. Anyway,
Moving on. So we spoke about Kia's EV6 and the Ionic in India. The
five.
pre-bookings are
Yeah.
starting in less than a month. They
Yep.
are coming completely built, so CBU, and they will cost about 50 lakhs, which is a very pricey segment
And
to
in line
be
with
in.
my expectation.
Yeah, in line
Well,
with what
to
you
be fair,
mentioned
there
last week.
isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, there isn't much in that space. What's more affordable than that would be a MG ZS EV.
Yes. Oh,
And
yeah,
then
for
everything
sure.
more expensive than this is going to be an Audi, which is closer to 1 crore.
The
So
e-tron, yeah, or if
yeah,
you're really crazy, any
the,
of the EQ vehicles.
yeah, the EQC or
Yeah.
whatever else. So those
Yeah.
those are closer to the 1 crore mark. So at 50, 45, 50, 55 lakhs, I think these might sell. And you know what? All of these are going to sell. Let's be honest, because they're only bringing 100 of these.
100
They're going to
units,
sell
yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
So these look great.
it's got a really nice design, futuristic look. I haven't seen too many in the
Exactly.
US yet, but they should be
What do you
trickling
think
out now.
of what do you think of the matte finish from factory? I think the satin finish is good, but obviously it's got a lot of upkeep to it. The only reason why I ask is because it's come a little bit mainstream over here. Once again, Kia, they have the Seltos X line, which came out last year,
Okay.
which comes factory with a satin finish.
Nice.
At that price point, there's nobody else doing that.
Wow, that's
No
yeah.
other manufacturer is doing that.
That's one of those things that Kia Hyundai can do in India somehow, right? Like they have this uncanny ability to give you these kinds of like features that are unimaginable
Yeah.
at those price points in India, right? Like, whether it's interiors or sometimes the exterior. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I
looks
personally
really
like
good
matte
on the road.
finishes, but yeah, but only if I have like a garage. I ain't parking that
Also,
outside.
if you have somebody, if you have somebody constantly wiping it down, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but then it's not you can't ask like the average guy that you'd hire in
Yeah,
your
I
society to wipe
know.
it down. You're going to have to give them the complete Maguire's kit, right? Like you'd be like, भैया
Yeah,
पहले
yeah.
ये कर लो, फिर ये रबर का जो चीज है ना, ये क्ले, ये भी उस पे घिसा दो बीच में क्ले बार कर लो, like it's
Yeah.
tough sell, man.
Yeah, it's tough sell. I don't know how many they sold.
Yeah.
They got stats on how many
Yeah,
of those
you could
sets
pull
like
that
they've
up. But
sold.
yeah, this is exciting in that sense that there'll be some electric halo cars for. That's the other thing, right? Like I think they want to position themselves by this. This might be like
Yeah.
the genesis for Kia Hyundai in India, in some sense. It's like their attempt to push a halo vehicle and
Yeah.
try to become more
No,
luxury oriented.
this is the big brand building exercise that
Mm,
Kia and Hyundai have, right? So
yeah.
like Hyundai, it's always been seen as the second best to buying a Suzuki, right? I mean,
Mm,
it's always been their position in the market before all these new brands came out over
yeah.
the past few 5 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Because they were the
it's always
Santro, right?
been exactly. It's
Yeah.
always been Suzuki
Uh huh.
and then Hyundai and then
Yeah.
everything else, right?
Yeah.
It's always been like that for the past decade or so.
Mm,
And Hyundai really should do something about moving away from that, but they're not doing it. They're not doing it
mm,
as much as Kia is pushing their agenda, right? Hyundai
mm.
has a lot more like focus on keeping it consistent. Like
I
we
see.
have these kind of brands that hold value in people's minds, so let's
Mm,
just build upon that. Now
yep.
the Verna still being sold, which is the accent in the US, and
Mm.
that is just a very boring sedan right now. It's not
Yeah,
doing anything
yeah. There's
special.
a lot of them on the roads. Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, it's a boring sedan now. Nobody's buying those
Mm,
anymore. They've got very few Elantras. They've got very few Tucsons. They
mm.
sell a lot of the Creta because that's what
Creta,
people
yes. Yeah.
want. There's what
SUV.
people want. They don't sell. I don't think they sell as many venues, which is the sub 4 meter
Mm,
subcompact
mm,
crossover that they have.
mm,
But what Kia is doing is definitely something else.
yeah.
I mean, what you said is correct that like Hyundai and Kia have a real good opportunity here to kind of rebrand themselves as more luxurious
Yeah,
brands or
yeah, yeah.
brands that can offer you luxury and something that's
A-
value for
And
money at the
they've
same
they've
time.
chosen a good route to do it because these are eye-catching EVs.
Yeah.
And both words are important, right? It needs to be eye-catching so that, when you
Yeah.
have a few of them rolling around the streets in India, then they'll be literally eye-catching and folks go, what
No,
is
for
that?
sure.
And then we're like, hey,
For
that's a
sure.
Kia. like,
Exactly.
and the
The
second being
EV6
EV.
rolls by.
Yeah.
Yeah, that EV6 rolls by, or the Ionic 5 rolls by.
And
People are going to
absolutely
think right away it's
silent.
an Audi or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to think it's premium right away because
Yeah.
that's what it looks like. It looks
Absolutely.
premium,
Absolutely.
looks
I
futuristic,
wouldn't
and
be
on the streets here,
surprised
it's
if
going to
they
look
got a
extra
few of
futuristic.
those. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I wouldn't be surprised if they handed a few of those over to like celebs, just so that they
Yeah.
get caught into more paparazzi shots, like in Mumbai, for example.
Mm,
If you give them to a couple of Bollywood celebs, and then
yeah. Could happen. Could
it could
happen.
happen.
I'm trying to find a
We
video
know
of
that
it.
for certain brands that definitely has an effect. Like Range Rover, for example, is like a popular Range Rover and Lambos.
Everybody's buying the Maybach right now.
My back, yeah. All right, let's see. Moving
Right.
on.
Just trying to look for a video, but it's fine. We can move on.
Yeah. Moving on, there was a news coming out that Lucid, which is another big EV upstart, just sold 100,000 EVs to Saudi Arabia of all people, and it seems like this
Yeah.
is this news is interesting in the context that one of the big.
Place that least needs EVs, right?
I mean, so one is that, right? They have all the. You could argue that this is part of the the strategy that the kingdom's taking to try to diversify their economy, and they want to try to position themselves as a more techno utopia, like the way Abu Dhabi is doing. But the other thing
Yeah.
is that the KSA has always had like a interesting relationship with Elon Musk and Tesla. Tesla was supposed to secure some funding a couple of years ago, and they said that Elon prematurely announced, I think, that they had secured, $500 million in funding from an investor. Turns out in court filings, the investor was from the, Saudi sovereign fund. So this might be just an indication of like the souring relationship between the two of them. But yeah, this
I
is
think it
more.
might also have something to do with the fact that Lucid's Air is way more luxurious than Tesla's Model S, right? So
I see.
it's a lot nicer. Personally, it's one of my favorite EVs right now is the Lucid
Yeah.
Air. Have you
If
seen
they,
the interiors of this thing?
let me see if I can pull that up. But
It
no,
looks
I
really good.
actually haven't seen the interiors. Definitely, this is
John,
an Okay.
John Rettinger, YouTuber John Rettinger
Okay.
has one, and he's done a long-term review of one. It's so slick, and it's
Mm,
got some amazing suspension features as well. Makes it feel like you're actually riding on air and stuff.
wow.
I don't have first hand experience, but
Mm,
obviously,
yeah,
people are
the
going to talk it
interior
up.
shots as well. Yeah, looks nice.
The
This is the one thing that a lot of people are waiting for with bated breath in some sense, and if they can, the main problem with any automotive upstart is getting your production running, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be the main thing for these guys. But we're moving back to the to Saudi Arabia and EVs. Like, I hope it doesn't end up like, when the first generation Teslas hit Dubai. There was a very famous image. I'm pulling up an image from Reddit
Yeah.
that was posted on r/electric vehicles, where there was a Tesla that ran out of juice in Dubai, and somebody brings over
Pulled up
an
his generator.
electric genset, like a gasoline powered electric genset that's like plugged into the Tesla to charge it so that this guy can get it back home.
It's hilarious.
I expect this
Is
to
that a Model
happen.
3? I think that's a Model 3.
Could be Model S too from the angle. Could be like a lot longer. We're just not seeing it
Yeah.
because I remember this being a
Yeah.
really old, like a 2 year
Oh
old.
yeah.
So it's probably the Model S.
Probably the Model S.
Tesla has
But the
officially
Model
has,
3,
yeah, Tesla officially has a presence in Dubai. Are they in
hmm,
Qatar as well? Do you know? Have we kept track? No
I'm
idea.
not entirely sure. I haven't heard.
Yeah.
So Tesla Model 3s, 48,000 of them being recalled also. So Tesla news
Yikes.
again. Speed
Yeah.
display issue. That seems like something that they should be careful about.
Wait,
Displaying
what's the
speed.
speed display issue? Let me see if I can pull this up. But yeah, continue talking about this while I do that. Yeah.
No, I mean, kind of harks back in with what we were talking about, the autonomous
Mm.
driving and everything, right? So, um, yeah, if they can't detect and visualize what speed people are doing, it's a safety hazard.
Apparently, the owner complaints are that if you turn the vehicle into track mode, the
Yeah.
speedometer doesn't display the speed unit at which a car was cruising. So that means it doesn't show whether you're kmph or mph, the speed unit. I mean,
Okay. I don't know.
um,
That's nitpicking. That's nitpicking.
so is
Like,
this like
where
an actual
didn't you
recall,
already
or is
know?
it just like an OTA notice? Like, I mean, like, you should be able to fix this over the air. Like, that's the whole point with software,
There
right?
should be. I don't
Yeah,
think they have to call these cars back into
into the,
the
yeah.
shop, but
But maybe the NTSHA demands that it has to be done so that they can guarantee that they. I don't know.
well,
The
there's stats for that. This is all software based. They can
Yeah,
prove how
they
many
could show
units have
compliance if they
that
wanted to.
firmware.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Tesla,
More
ever
Tesla stuff.
mysterious. Honestly, their issues, we've talked about this before, is more about them positioning their vehicles as FSD capable without having any lick of evidence of being able to be deployed in any large form, right? Like, they just want to use their owners as crash test dummy beta testers, right? Really, really dangerous. So anyway, moving on to more positive news. The Actually, not necessarily positive. Nissan Z, which is something that people have been waiting with bated breath here in the US. The new Z. Apparently, its
Yeah,
release is delayed until summer
summer.
2023.
Yeah,
At this point, how much can you claim that your issue is because of unforeseen supply chain issues? Supply chain issues have been going on
everybody's got
for.
this.
They're not necessarily unforeseen. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
that looks
this,
really good.
yes. A,
That's a good
it
looking
looks
car.
really
But
good. People love the Z, and it could be Nissan's comeback car because it's a brand that's been faltering for a bit. So
yeah,
there's a lot riding on the Z, and hopefully, if it comes out,
for sure. But do you think it's a bit late? I mean, with the Supra having come out a few years ago, and also with everybody shifting EV right now, do you think they should have done an EVZ? A
EVZ.
ZEV?
That's a great name. They should go ahead and like patent that
The
ASAP.
EVZ.
EVZ. Oh,
Yeah,
which you
it's
driving?
very
I'm
close to the
driving an EVZ.
EV6.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Hard to say actually. Like, There is so the Japanese auto manufacturers have been trying to catch the 90s auto nostalgia, where the 90s Japanese sports cars reign supreme, from the Supras to the S2000s to the Miatas to even all the way up to the Skylines. Like the 90s were like a big halo year for Japanese sports cars. And like, as that generation grows up and makes the kind of money that allows them to buy these kinds of cars, they're trying to capture the market that way. I don't know. It's I don't know how big the size of this market is. And in the
Yeah,
2000s, the Z was like the king, right? The 350 and 370Zs were super
for
popular.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I know I wanted to get a 370Z
Yeah, I
before I
wanted to
picked up
get
my
a yeah, I
FJ
wanted to get a
Cruiser.
350, 370 as well. It was the tail end of when they were
Well, you got a
pushing those out.
Camaro, so
I did
I
buy a
think you'll
Camaro.
manage. You'll manage. Right, you got a Camaro, and then you got an FJ after that. And then when
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
about to
no,
buy
no.
my FJ, I looked at a 370Z, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, should I not? Then I considered, okay, we're in Doha, and then no,
The other
just
thing
go
is,
with
is
FJs.
this car enough to pull
Safer
people
bet.
away from the 86s and the GR?
Well, the
GR.
GR86 is no. Well, this is a total different class, so
That's true. From the
maybe
regular
compare
86,
with
it'll pull
Supra.
people away from the regular BRZ and the regular 86.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this.
yeah. I mean, with
Uh,
the Supra and BMW Z4 right there,
yeah,
uh, I don't know. I like the Supra, but except it's too BMW for me. Like it's
yeah. I
just
think
go get a Z4.
people expected a Toyota Supra, and then they got a BMW Z4 instead, and
Yeah, a
that
BMW
that
Supra.
rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And the fact that because of the
I
way the
think
engine.
it's
Yeah, go ahead.
the no. I was saying I think it's mostly. I wouldn't even say it's the engine. I wouldn't even say like the design. Design obviously is completely different, but I would say it's mostly to do with the interior setup. If you get inside a Supra, it looks exactly the
It
same
is a
as a
BMW.
BMW.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, right. They should have done something different there. Like besides swapping out the badge, a BMW badge for
this
a Toyota badge, they should have
I,
done something
I
different.
think that's
Because
what really rubbed the Toyota owners the wrong way, right? Because this is a low effort.
like I didn't want to buy a BMW. If I wanted to buy a
Yeah.
BMW, I'd buy BMW.
Why did you rebadge a BMW and call it Supra, which is like a Halo brand name too, right?
Exactly.
Um, and the big complaint was that there was no manual option, because what tends to happen with these vehicles, because they are not only sports cars, but they also tend to be possible future collector cars.
Hmm.
And whenever it comes to a collector's car for sports cars here in the collector's market in the US, it's always going to be the top spec engine variant and the
Hmm.
manual in
Hmm.
possibly like whatever the main brochure color was. That ends
Hmm.
up being the collector car of choice. And the fact that they didn't have a manual
Yeah.
variant till now uh, is was also really pissed people off. And maybe too little too late, but there's going to be a 6-speed manual that's coming up with the 6-cylinder engine, so one gear for every cylinder. Anyway,
Yeah.
but I don't
Yeah.
know if that's going to cause a dent in that, but we'll see what happens.
It looks funny, right? That image that you were sharing right now, the iDrive control right next to a manual.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like you
Yeah.
put an old thing and a new thing together, and then like, there it
Yeah.
is.
Also, honestly, like, are there big fans for BMW Z to begin with? Like, I know in the 90s during like the James Bond era, like when the Z3 launched,
Well,
everybody was really kind of crazy about it. But
the
at
Z8. The
Z8,
Z8 was the James Bond thing, right? So there was the
yeah,
Z8, which was like a limited run. The
yeah,
Z3 ran for a while, and then they had the
yeah,
Z4. Um, the Z cars have had its place as
yeah,
the roadster of choice for the people with abundance in wealth,
mm,
right? So if you didn't want a Miata and you
yeah,
wanted a BMW badge, that's what you
yeah,
would get.
yeah. The other thing is the collector's market. I mean, the U.S. auto market is all sorts of crazy right now. You can buy if you buy like a in demand enough car, you can drive it off the lot, drive it for a whole month, and then sell it for more than what it costs new for many models in the
This is
U.S.
true.
The other thing is that I think the collector's market is also focusing on really weird cars. And like, for example, the Pontiac Aztec is starting to like, it's one of the ugliest cars ever made, and then it's starting to be like
It's like the Breaking Bad car.
yeah, it's starting to become like a hipster flex. Speaking of which, like at least because of like YouTubers like Doug DeMuro and Hoovy's Garage. Speaking of Z, the BMW clown shoe car, the Z3 is starting because it looks like a pair of clown shoes, right? It's an extremely elongated
But
car.
this is the Z3 with a hatch.
Yeah, Z3 hatch, the clown shoe version. This is starting to pick up in value apparently because it's such a weird looking car.
The proportions are all
Yeah,
wrong.
all wrong, all wrong. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Like all of these cars are starting to like push up in value
You know
because
what
they're
that looks
just
like?
yeah.
That looks like they try to release in India on the sub 4 meter category. Just,
I
oh
agree.
man, just made it.
Just somehow just chop the car.
3995.
Oh yeah. But I think
It's
it's
like a
also it's
ecosystem.
interesting because I think it's a response to like the crossoverification and the fact that all cars kind of look alike these days, right? Like all the cars are like they gradually design their way into this optimum design for sales, and like people who don't want to be part of that, they just like, yeah, no, give me the most obnoxious, most ugly looking car. That's what I want. Perfection. Oh man. All right. So moving on to the gaming news of the week. Govind, guess what?
Right.
I just
I
ordered
saw. I
my
saw.
Steam
I'm
Deck.
so excited for you.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I got the
Great
email a
news.
couple of days back. I reserved this, I want to say back in May, April, the moment they opened reservations for
Really?
this.
It was that long ago?
Yeah, it was that long ago. But initially when I
A year. Wow.
yeah, initially when I reserved it, my the folks who reserved the very first Steam Decks, like if you were within the first, maybe I don't know, maybe 5,000 people or something, they generally got a ship date for Q4 2021, which was holiday season last year. They missed that obviously with chip shortages and things like that. So the first units actually started coming out maybe about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And my
We
luckily
obviously saw a
my
lot of reviews about it at that time. At
yeah,
that time.
luckily when I reserved mine, my estimated ship was the same. It was Q1 2022. It got pushed to Q2 2022. And they've actually managed to honor that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I still haven't gotten a shipping notification. Hopefully that'll come soon. The Steam Deck that I
It'll
ordered is
get
the mid variant, which is the 256 GB.
which makes the most sense.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. It is extremely user upgradable. Valve has partnered with iFixit for replacement parts. You can put in any SSD you want to.
Oh, wait. So can you do that on the 64 GB one as well?
I believe so. The problem is the 64 GB
Then
uses an
what's your?
eMMC card. I'm not sure if
Well,
they.
that's for that.
Yeah, but I'm not
They
sure if
have the
they
port
support
for the NVMe.
NVMe SSDs in the same slot. I'm not entirely sure.
Ah, but
Um,
isn't that more expensive for them than maintaining two kinds of motherboards, or where one accepts M.2 and
Yeah,
one
yeah. I
doesn't?
could be completely wrong about this. Um,
How much does a 256 GB NVMe card cost right now on Amazon?
on Amazon,
Does is
I
that
heard a,
is
I heard
that
a
the
look.
price differential there?
No, no. So the other thing is that it uses the short stubby ones. So you have to
Oh, right,
find.
because
You
it's very
definitely have to
expensive.
find those.
Those are
Those are generally
expensive.
more expensive. Um,
Yeah, but then if that's the difference in price, then it's
yeah. The
reasonable.
reason I went for the mid variant was I was not entirely sure if you could
You could pay off
buy.
the memory card.
No. Yeah, I was not sure if you could push the NVMe SSD onto the base variant. I think you can, but at the time of me setting up my reservation, I just went with the basic sort of like whatever.
Wait, so if you had reserved a 64 GB, you wouldn't be given the option to upgrade right now?
That is correct. I can't. So like when I
Well,
wanted to buy my
that's not
250,
good.
yeah, they were very strict about the like they won't allow you to
Well,
switch
you tell
between the
us
variants.
exactly what you want.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like a
yeah,
fancy restaurant.
yeah.
You tell us exactly what you want. We'll have it ready.
Yeah,
You show up.
yeah. So the other thing is that the Steam Deck is it's not just the SSD onboard SSD. It has
Mhm.
external storage. Like you can pop in a SD card, and you
Right,
can
but
use that
that
as the
won't be as
basis
fast.
for you can put like a 1 terabyte on if you wanted to, and then have it hold all your games. I mean, not all your games.
But how fast is that, right? How your load times are going to be affected a lot.
Your load times can be affected. I don't know if they can stream. Again, once I have this in hand, I'll probably talk about like my
Also, aren't they
experiences with it.
working on a 40 FPS lock feature on the Steam Deck? I read
They
something about
already
that.
have like an FPS lock feature. So what you can do is you can set your target
Right.
FPS, and then it'll cap the thermal the TDP of the chips to give you to
Mm.
maximize your battery life. So I think how they do that is because they have sort of like performance profiles for each of the supported games, and then they can use community
Right.
feedback as well to say, how well is it capping the FPS, and then they can actually you can target an FPS and then you can do it. This I mean, I just want to support companies that have open designs like this, have open repairability, open software.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons. And I can finally maybe say goodbye to my PSP that I have of 15 plus years running now. Yeah, I still have that, by the way, and I put
Yeah,
like a
that's
256 gig, no sorry, a 128 gig memory stick on it by using a memory stick adapter, so I don't have to use the Sony proprietary memory stick. I could actually take that 128 gig. That's cool, right? Like I could actually take that 128 gig SD card and move it over to the Steam Deck when I get it. Ooh, that's probably one of the
And
first things that I'll
can
do.
you
That I'll load a PSP emulator and
emulate?
play PSP games on my Steam Deck, even though I have a PSP. Hardware tinkering to the max.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
crazy. So, do you think this over the Switch OLED? I mean, pricing wise,
Completely
similar.
different markets, man. This is not a switch killer in any. We talked about this before. This is not a
Yeah,
switch killer
we
in
did.
any sense of the
But
word.
yeah,
My
that's true.
my idea is like sometimes I want to play PC games, but I don't want to sit in front of my PC. Like, this is just purely
But
like
then
a
again,
out of laziness. Right?
I mean, the
Yeah.
screen's pretty small for a AAA game, to be honest. Like, I've seen you were showing some videos of Control and all those kind of games.
I mean,
Being
it's twofold, right?
pretty
Like the
small.
idea is that the screen is small, also because you're able to push that kind of target
Frames
FPS on AAA titles because you only have to render 720p.
and
So
battery.
yeah, and yeah, for battery, right? Yeah, so they can get away with like a current gen AMD APU. Like, Govind, this is Xbox Series S level graphics in your hand.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
because it's essentially the same. It's the Ryzen APU architecture. It has
But
to
I'm
it
sure the
has to put.
TDP values are much lower
Yeah,
because
but it
you can't
only
have
has to
that kind
push
of.
out 720p. It doesn't have to push out 1080p. That's how they're doing it,
Ah,
right?
right.
That's the thing. Like, I don't think it'll. My understanding is it doesn't do ray tracing, but who cares? The size, like, come on. Now we have to mention that this is not the only like handheld PC in this space. There's the Aya Neo and a bunch of other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot of other
but this is
places,
the
but
first
this is the mainstream
mainstream,
one now.
yeah, attempt
Yeah.
to doing this. Once I have it in my hands, I'll probably I'll
Yeah,
show
let's
it
do
off.
a.
I'll do a show and tell on the next podcast for the video podcasters, and I'll talk about my experiences with it for sure.
Hopefully, you have it by then. You get your
Yeah,
ship
let's
date
hope
by
so.
then.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I'm waiting for that
Yeah.
shipping notification ASAP. Yeah. And we spoke quite a bit on the last podcast about Xbox Game Pass, and PlayStation is kind of feeling the heat because folks who have some PS Plus subscriptions, they reached a deal with EA because FIFA 22 is going to be offered in next month's games with PlayStation Plus. For those who don't know,
Right.
if you have PlayStation Plus, you get like 2 or 3 games for free per month. It's not necessarily yours to keep because you can play them as long as you have the PlayStation Plus subscription. This is big news because so far Sony's only ever had Pro Evolution Soccer offered as part of the sports games in PlayStation Plus. So there had to be there had to be some kind of agreement between PlayStation and EA, because EA is not necessarily letting go of any revenue when they do this because of all the microtransactions that are there in FIFA, right? So they don't have to necessarily lose revenue. In fact, it's an avenue for them to make more revenue. EA makes $1 billion plus a year just selling microtransactions on FIFA. So we'll have to see what happens. Yeah. This is great for those who finally managed to snag a PS5, for example, or even those who have PS4 with PS Plus.
But again, it's EA, it's FIFA, it's FIFA 21 with new skins,
new roster. Yeah, FIFA 21 with the roster update, basically. Again, if you disagree, leave your angry comments below. But
for sure.
And it'll be interesting if we'll see a Qatar 2022 DLC. We will. There was a Russia DLC for the last World Cup. Yeah. So if you wanted to play in those fancy Qatar stadiums for the World Cup, it's very, very likely that that'll be pushed out as well. Yeah. We'll have to see what happens.
For sure.
All right. And
the last thing we had was Ubisoft.
Okay.
Ubisoft is axing online support for 91 games. But then this is again a whole bunch of games that hark back all the way to the PS2 and so on. So Ubisoft made a decision on not supporting 91 of their titles. 91 is a big number to go all in once. Okay.
So some of the 91. Games include End
not
War.
100. 91.
Then our personal favorite, some of the Splinter Cells, World in Conflict. That's interesting.
On another one.
Yeah, and then I am so sad that we never got another Hawks game. I loved the Hawks games. Yeah. This is not surprising because certain games, especially with even like PC games, multiplayer support kind of gets dropped as soon as there aren't enough active players on these.
For sure. Yeah.
What's really interesting that happens is there are certain games that have an extremely high, rabid fan base of people who won't let them die. An example is SOCOM. So SOCOM on the PS2, for example, there are people who've kept it alive, the PS2 multiplayer alive. Can you imagine? So what they've done is you need to set up a
PS2.
Yeah.
Wow.
You need to set up some weird stuff on at home, like something that intercept the PS calls into the PS network, because the PSN doesn't work for PS2 anymore. And yeah, they've set it up. It's crazy. Yeah. There are many examples. This is I'm showing a forum page from Linus Tech Tips about folks who are still playing SOCOM 2.
It's 2014.
Yeah, back in 2014. But it's as far as I know, it still exists, right? It's still there. All right, folks. And with that, I think we will call this an end to today's podcast.
This is the end of episode 5, I want to say.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys are enjoying our podcast, and feel free to leave some feedback on some of the topics. We definitely have feedback on individual things that we talk about in the previous podcast. Jason left an interesting message last time about how he disagreed with your position on the Tesla charger, which was pretty valid.
Yeah.
And also, if you have requests for things that we could cover in the future, let us know. If you want to know either mine or Govind's take on different tech topics, let us know. So until next time, see ya.
See ya.